hey, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure. It's been great. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet. So, before we get into your good work, I want to begin with something that I'm sure just rocked the foundation of what you were doing professionally, which was 5 years ago, this pandemic began, or we were really in the middle of it, figuring things out. Ultimately, as the dust has settled, how did you survive that time period, and how has it continued to influence the way that you live life today?
It's I don't think anything changed for me other than, I think everyone else's view on the world. And I'm a I'm pretty good about you deal with what life gives you.
Yeah,
And you just hope the good Lord above guides you in the right direction. And what can you do?
yeah,
Right? I mean, you just got to keep on living. You can't control it.
yeah. Well, I mean, you're dealing in industries that fluctuate and undulate. So this just seems like it's a natural part of life. There's always an unexpected monkey wrench that gets thrown in.
Yeah, yeah. It's what can you do? I mean, I quote Stephen Covey a lot, right? And one of the things he talks about is circle of concern, circle of influence. I had no way to influence any outcome in the big picture of the world. I'm just one little ant on the planet,
Yeah.
and keep my head down, get through each day, hope it's better tomorrow, and move on with life.
I just kept thinking about my kids. That time had a monopoly on us, and I didn't want it to be wasted time. I didn't want any of it to be a deviation from what I was used to living and the way I live my life. So I just wove my kids into it more, and just get out, do what you can. Don't let the fear take you over, and
Right.
just live as you would,
Yep, that's right.
you know.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do. So let's get into what you do for a living, and the best way to do that is to have it explained to kids. Kids get to the marrow of the matter real quick. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room is curious and he's like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yeah.
answer him?
Well, very simply, my life is in sales, right? And I spend my life in sales, and I love my job. I travel the world, and I sell ice machines, and I have one account, and that's McDonald's. So where there's a McDonald's, I'll be to help sell them an ice machine. That's how I look at it. And I've been fortunate that I've had great success in any of my jobs. I've had 4 jobs in my life, 33 years with McDonald's, and then 12 years working for different suppliers to McDonald's. And so the ketchup's in my vein, as I like to say. And I've been blessed with making the right decisions with life choices. And those 12-year-olds, they're too young to figure it out, but they'll figure it out. I mean, I used to tell my girls growing up, don't enjoy time being a kid. You'll figure life out.
I think in all of the years that I've been to McDonald's, I don't think there was ever a time where they're like, "I can't put ice in this cup." You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's other places where things fall down, amusement parks, there's stuff, but I'm just thinking when just with you saying, being involved with the largest corporation, food corporation on the planet, I've
Yeah.
never run into that where they're like, well, the ice machine isn't working today. It just didn't, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, they have ways to manually fill it, but there's times it doesn't work,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
Yeah.
we're not in the perfect world.
Right.
So, but the premise, of my 45 years in the working world, was really the inspiration to write my book. And just it's a culmination of all my life experiences that, you know, kind of gave me the motivation to write the book and my learnings to, help someone else.
So we're going to get into the book, but before that, I want to go
Yeah.
back into that room as a 12-year-old. When you were that age, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed playing baseball. Funny, I was just thinking about that the other day. I spent hours and hours outside playing ball with a bunch of neighborhood kids, and then in the winter we played neighborhood hockey in the cemetery. We called it the Cemetery Hockey League. It was every day after school we'd go up there and just skate for hours. And I didn't know what I wanted to do as a kid. and I stumbled in it.
Seem, it seems like playing in a cemetery would launch 1,000 little sayings like every game was a death match or something like that.
Yeah,
So let me ask you this. So being up in that area, I'm trying to get a handle on it. I think it's kind of like when I say I'm in Kansas City, people are like, is it Kansas or Missouri? Because the metro is so big. So when
yeah,
you talk about where you're at, or it's Red Sox country.
of course, yeah,
So have you seen those films on Netflix about when Theo came in and turned the team around and they won it in
yep,
'04?
yep,
My
I
God.
did.
And then
Great, great
they have a,
series.
it's unbelievable. And they have a new one now where they go into the clubhouse of a player from last year and show how the Red Sox are trying to get back to that glory. And it's amazing to look at that organization and what they've
Yeah,
done.
I've seen that advertised. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, it's so
I,
good.
I will at some point.
Yeah, it's like being a baseball fan or a sports fan. It's like you get to see the grind in a different way, the way they talk to each other, the pressure they feel. And now that I'm getting to be an older guy, I'm getting all these older guy thoughts in my brain. I just am amazed at it's a grueling schedule. They're not around their families. They're at high pressure all the time. There's always someone in the stands cheering or jeering, and it's loud. Like to do that consistently, to get your adrenaline going that much all the time. Wow.
Yeah, it's especially in Boston. I
Yeah.
remember I went to a Pittsburgh Pirates game in my travels, and the Pittsburgh. I just remember very simply a Pittsburgh player got a base hit. The whole crowd just cheered as loud as you could. I go, oh my God! In Boston they get a base hit. They're like, yeah, okay, good job.
Whatever.
Exactly. It's like, oh my God, we were spoiled, and half the group feels entitled, I think.
And I think it kind of comes down to that. I don't want to bag on the Yankees, but and I know there's the rivalry, but when I see Yankees fans when they start booing in the playoffs, coming from Kansas City, we would never do that. I've never heard our town ever, no matter how
Right.
bad it got, ever get to that
Yeah.
point.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And
You
just
know,
like, you compare that to football. The Chiefs are a great organization. I mean, I remember back in the days of I want to say Hank Stram
yeah,
and who was the quarterback? Back when my first recollection of football was the Chiefs and the Vikings in the Super Bowl.
Lenny Dawson.
Yeah, Len Dawson. Yeah, thank you. But that's when the Vikings became my favorite team because I
Yeah.
loved the helmet and I watched the Super Bowl and I loved Fran Tarkenton.
I just wish Minnesota would get there. I really would love to see that town blow up and have a celebration. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yeah,
Like Cleveland, the long suffering Indians or Guardians now. It's like I just
I
want to
know.
see like even Pittsburgh, if the Pirates could get there, I would love to see these teams that never get in. Just because we felt that when the Royals won it in 15, it was
Yep.
like euphoria. Oh, just it was wonderful, man.
Yeah, and just like now since I don't have much to root for in the Patriots, I just look for good football.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good young quarterbacks that I just admire. Patrick Mahomes is one, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, um, the guy Brock Purdy coming out of the last pick of the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to hope for nothing but success for him.
Well, look at Tom Brady. He was right there at the
Yeah,
end. And I
yeah,
didn't realize that until I went to the draft in Kansas City, and there was a friend of mine there that was a Patriots fan. He said, and we saw the last pick of that draft, which I think was 2 years ago. And he was like, "You realize that Tom Brady was the same thing, and look what
yeah.
happened. He
I
just
know.
get out of Michigan, had the heart, and he did it."
It's it. You can't measure someone's heart in the draft.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. And that's
Sure.
the thing I keep thinking when I see the draft. Like it's a little different with baseball because you got to kind of be like a wine and you got to kind of age in the minors. But in football, it's go time. Once you get in there, it
Yeah.
can change the whole. Because I when I talked to people from Chicago, I was like, you were that close to getting Mahomes, and the Bears would have been a dynasty,
But
possibly.
you know what? I think it's the system.
I do
Like,
too. You're
you
right.
know, Brady wouldn't have worked under as a Bear, Chicago Bears. I mean,
True. You're totally right.
Mahomes wouldn't have worked for anybody else but Andy Reid.
It,
It's the system and Belichick and Brady,
it
Don Shula and, Bob Greasy.
yeah,
It's,
that's right.
it's, it wouldn't have been the same. They always say it was a Brady or was it Belichick? It was both of them.
It was, and it was everything. It was the organizational flow. I remember I went up and saw the last day of summer camp with the Chiefs this year, and you're just sitting there and Mahomes is right there just pacing around. You're like, I'm next to the most famous athlete in the world right now, arguably in the top five. And I'm just watching how he's interacting, and it's the last day. That dude wouldn't stop. If I would have had a time lapse, he was just everywhere. He's throwing the football around, talking to everybody, playing with like the people, the handlers out there. He was literally interacting. There was like it was like he was
Yeah,
like a glue bottle that was just like gluing everything together on a
yeah,
jigsaw puzzle, you know?
yeah. And you can't measure that in any draft. And the
No.
other thing that college athletes, they're just not developed with their muscles, even any sport,
Yep.
basketball players, football players, baseball, you just you can't you can't measure how they're going to be 5 years from then. It's hard to gauge that.
Absolutely. Well,
So,
speaking of gauging and getting to that point, take me back to your beginnings. What what was it about your childhood that gave you the foundation, the seeds that were planted for you to get into sales and be successful?
I would have to credit my mom, right? I mean, she always encouraged me to follow your heart and never judged, didn't never helped me, never second guessed any decision that I ever made. She just said, go with what you think is right. And I try to say the same thing to my girls. They were worried about what they want to do in their life. And I think it's the upbringing and the your parents' foundation and the love and support. And you look at so many, children in broken homes now, and children raised as a single parent. I mean, you have some parents that do a phenomenal job, and then you just have some kids. I mean, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, and you get some kids that get in trouble, and it's like, what were their parents teaching them? I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, I
So
don't know.
how did you know? I mean, when you talk about putting ice machines in McDonald's and doing something at that high level of caliber, how did you know early on in your career that this was going to be, what was the moment for you that you knew that this was your career path?
Uh, you know what? I think I knew that my career path when in my McDonald's days, the corporate world started to change, when you were treated as a number and not as a valued employee. And that's not a shot against McDonald's. McDonald's has been around for 70 years. And it's just that I changed. I was a talker. I don't overstretch my bounds. Some people just talk too much. I never talk too much. I know when to be quiet. I know when to listen. And I just enjoyed meeting people, being around people, interacting with people, and have them trust in you. And I realized that I had some great teachers along the way that set good examples, and I just enjoyed it. And I love what I sell. I mean, I tell people certain things. I can't sell an ice machine for a competition because it's so far in superior or lower quality that I can't sell it. You got to love what you sell. You got to love the product. You got to be committed to it. And yeah, it's I think I don't know what that moment was, but I just love what I do. I love being around people and talking to people and helping their stores run better because of ice. I mean, ice seems so simple. It's such a critical food component in the restaurant world that you have a small impact, and you don't want to be known for having that broken ice machine because then you're noticed.
Yeah, you certainly do. I remember my engineer for my radio show told me, you may not get a lot of people that will tell you you're doing good, but the minute it goes wrong,
Yeah,
right?
that's
That's it.
right.
And that's the thing. No news is good news. You can go
That's
along
right.
for years and years and years, and if no one's saying anything, you can just consider that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I go
And
to
it,
different shows throughout the around the globe, and people, you get upset that, geez, no one came to talk to me. Well, that's not a bad thing.
right, right. Absolutely. So, it's interesting you talk about, the corporate culture changing and you become a number. And I used to live in that. I worked in the corporate culture in my 20s, and it was just, there was a level of it that just, it was, there just wasn't a soul in it that I wanted to have. And I got into the nonprofit world and found this, there was this vigor. So I'm curious, when you look at the landscape of corporations and companies that exist on the planet, what company, what entrepreneur do you admire that's upheld that level of doing it right with for the employees, for the company culture overall. Is there anybody like that?
Any individual?
Yeah, or company, whether individual, entrepreneurial mind, like it's Steve Jobs, or just a company that's done it.
It's hard for me to measure that. I think there's been a number of individuals that were my bosses that made my job so much better and so much more valued. And you get up, and I've never had a day where I haven't woken up and wanted to do my job. Um, I mean, I think what's that shoe company in Vegas? Zappos?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They have a great reputation.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard from them lately, but I heard the CEO talk one day at a convention back, gosh, maybe 15 years ago. And I was pretty impressed by his philosophy. They have doggy daycare at their office. You can bring your dogs. They have a daycare facility for the children if you want to bring them into work. What a great reward for your people, and to have them feel valued, that they don't, and if something happens to the kid when they're in daycare, they can go tend to what they need to.
Yeah.
So I think that probably one thing that stood out to me as a very um inspiring moment. And I say that off the top of the cuff, but I remember I was touched by his speech.
Yeah.
Um,
So to relive your career and to go through all of the things that you've gone through, how much fun was it to write this book?
oh, it's funny. I it took me over a year, and it was just brought back so many memories, and the thoughts of, and every impact in that book changed my life in some way and influenced it in some way. And I talked to a number of people that are still in the McDonald's world that I kind of talk about. And it just gives them so many fond memories of their time in the McDonald's world. And but it wasn't about just McDonald's. I mean, I talk about a lot of things that really are life directional. It doesn't matter what job you're in. I think it could help touch so many people. And I've been impressed with some of the reviews online. I've been touched by some of the people who have said very positive things to me. How it reminded them of their corporate bringing. And I've had one gentleman tell me that I should teach it to all the high school kids. And I'd love to talk to a high school group or even a college group. So I don't know. I want to pursue public speaking too. That's my next kind of thing, what I'd like to explore. And I got my first presentation to a group of Hispanic gathering folks in June.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, yeah,
So one of my first jobs I had was at McDonald's, and that was before the world kind of got to this place of cancel culture and all this weird stuff that's going on. Just seemed
yeah,
like a different time. And I remember working with a guy named Rex that had been in the clink for a bit and got out and loved the job, just loved it. And then on break, I could make my quarter pounder of my dreams. I could do all these things. I was
yeah,
figuring out how things worked. I mean, it was good. It was a good learning experience for me. First real injury I had on the job. I burnt my hand cleaning a grill and all of these things. And I think about those days, how many people tasted the world of company life and moved on from there. And it was something that was a springboard. And,
yeah.
you know,
I remember I talked in my book about burning my three fingers on the grill my first day.
yeah, I
You know,
poured water and it came up the back. Like I didn't realize how hot it was. And it was just like it was game over. But it was a big,
yeah,
I knew what not to do.
right.
Then,
Yeah, but I know when I took the job, who knew I'd be there 33 years?
Right.
You know, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this. You dealing in the company world, things can be serious and you kind of get to
yep,
know people here and there, but at the end of the
sure,
day, if you were to walk into a room of everybody you've dealt with in a company business sense for all these years, and you could go to the front of the room where a podium is and you can tell them one fun story, one fun anecdote, something that you did, jumped out of a plane, first concert you saw, best sports experience, something really cool that would humanize you to that group of people, what story would you tell them?
Oh, gosh, you're really putting me on the spot
I'm
there, Joe.
sorry. Or
Uh, um, first, I think this could be a good future icebreaker too.
yeah,
Um, oh gosh. I'm wasting
How,
time. Yeah.
no, 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 you're good. How about this? Let me ask you this. This is one thing I wanted to ask you. The one thing about being successful is that it requires risk. And of all of the great business minds that you'll read out there, they always talk about there's risks that are involved with whatever you want to do well.
Yeah.
What was the biggest risk that you've taken in your career?
Let's see. I think the biggest risk was leaving the comfort of my job after 33 years.
Yeah.
You know how the corporate world works in the McDonald's. I could have stayed on, and McDonald's was becoming who I wasn't. I was a relationship builder, and so to me, that biggest risk was take changing jobs. And a lot of people are in that. A lot of people in our generation, the baby boomers, the Gen Ys, the people that are in a job for 10 years and they want to change. That's was my jump off the cliff moment. And even I remember the last day walking out of the office that very moment, I go, am I making the right decision? And I said to myself, yep, you are. Don't look back. You just got to look forward. That was a life changer for me, jumping out of that comfort zone. And I think so many people in our generation get so comfortable, and you see a lot of long-term folks. Nowadays, you don't see that.
Right.
The Gen Z, and it's not, typically they say 5 years is the max. You don't see a 40-year employee. Um, so
I I remember at Career Day when I was a kid, they were like, "You're going to make between 8 and 12 career jumps," and I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And that was back in the late '80s. And
yeah,
now with these new generations, a lot of them I think have seen the older generations and they want to be their own entrepreneur. They want to be their own schedule maker. They want to make their own decisions, which I think is a good evolution.
yeah. And I think one thing that touched on me, and when I knew I wanted to leave, I wanted to change jobs. A former HR person who was kind of like a friend or give me advice, he said to me, Charlie, your most best time to change jobs is between the ages of 40 and 55,
Yeah.
because at that age you have years of experience that you can apply to your job, whatever your job you go to, and you have so many transferable skills, no matter what job you're in. But I had numerous transferable skills in the McDonald's world. I mean, I dealt with HR issues all the time, sexual harassment, insurance claims, in operations stuff. But that struck me as really, as an aha moment. 40 to 55 is most time, because at 55, you still have another 10 years that people would look at you, that you could bring a lot of value to a new company. Of course, then as you get a little bit older, you feel less diminished. But I still feel, yeah, I could work another 10 years. If I wanted to change jobs today, I could. But the reality is that maybe it might not be the best time to change a job. But I think that's a mindset. I think it's all in the attitude.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, of everything that you've done and accomplished in your career and evolved to at this point, what are you the proudest of?
Uh, you know, Probably my kids. They've gone on to, my youngest daughter's a nurse, and she called me yesterday, as a matter of fact, says, geez, I was talking to somebody, and we have in my nurse, she's just like one class away from her RN. And she said, I was walking out with one of my other students, and they said to me, why are you so nice to those people that treat you, or they snobbish to you and this and that? And she goes, my dad always taught me to kill with kindness. And
That's it.
you can't change that.
Yeah.
So
So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, everyone that you've worked with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's
yeah.
your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Ah, it's funny, people will tell you they perceive me as a quiet analyzer, always analyzing, questioning things, and some of that's partially right. But I'm an outgoing, very engaging person in the right environment. and there'll be times that you're around people that just out talk you. I just let them talk,
Yeah.
and if it's their turn to talk, they can talk, and I'm just listening. I'm always listening to what they're saying, and yeah. So I think I'm very outgoing, but people sometimes think I'm quiet and shy.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone wants to pick up the book, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
Amazon.com for my book,
Okay.
Life, Leadership, and Success. I don't know. It's blurred. It's
And yeah,
blurred.
it's
Oh,
tricky. There we go. We had a minute. And I'll have that in my
there we go.
montage. There we go. Yep, we got it. That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey,
Yeah.
Charlie, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your
Yes,
story.
Joe.
Thank you for your time. One last question.
Sure.
What's the best sports game you've ever attended, and what game would you go to if you could get into a time machine?
Oh, gosh. I mean, gosh, one of the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl, right? Patriots
Yeah.
down 28-3. And
They
I,
still hate him down there. I've talked to people from Atlanta. Like, I don't think he can go down there. It's still bad.
yeah, I mean, I was leaving, I had to leave for Dallas the next day. And I remember, so I'm just going to go pack my bags, get ready for my trip. And I turned the TV on in my bedroom. My wife's downstairs, and I think they got a field goal and then a touchdown. I go, this might be interesting. And you think, there's no way, but there's hope then. And I mean, that was unbelievable moment.
Yeah.
Or the other one being when the Red Sox won the World Series after 80 some odd years, whatever it was, in 2004.
Yeah.
I remember where I was that moment in life.
I got swept up into it. I was, of all things, I was a Mets fan. Not as much now, but my dad was from Long Island. So in
Okay.
'86, when that ball went underneath his legs, I remember freaking out when they won it. But I got to tell you, in '04, I was getting ready to have my son, and I was really getting swept back up into baseball because I took a detox after '94. That strike really hurt me. And I was
Yeah.
getting
Okay.
back into it. And I remember buying a Boston hat, and I was really getting swept up into it. So I was really happy. I mean, anytime a team can shake that curse, like when the Cubs did it in '16, man, you got to give
Oh,
the
yeah.
proper due, right?
Yep. Yep. Theo Epstein again.
Right, exactly. That
Yeah.
is it. He's the magic
Right.
guy. And I remember in that documentary, they were all like, who is this young guy that, like, who's this teenager walking in here telling us what to do, you know?
But what catapulted them to win the '04 series was the loss in '03, that game seven of the championship series,
That's
and
it.
Tim Wakefield gave up that home run to Aaron Boone. That catapulted the following year.
So for us in Kansas City in 14 in game 7 against the Giants, when Alex Gordon stopped at third, that is the most haunting sports moment in Kansas City history because everybody's like, if he would have won, because that place was shaking. Like there was a
Yeah.
chance, and they statistically, scientifically try to break it down. But anyway, it's that defeat of anything. It's the metaphor that ripples through our lives that will propel you to greatness afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Bruins, when they won the cup the year before, they were up 3 games to none against the Philadelphia Phillies, and Philadelphia Flyers
Yep.
lost in game seven. In the following year, they won the Stanley Cup.
That's it. And it's amazing how they can do that, you know.
Yep.
And it's hard to do. Like when the Royals rebounded in 15 and did it, that's really incredibly hard to go
Yeah.
back twice, you know.
That's right.
So, but
Absolutely.
but it's wild.
Yeah.
Charlie, thank you, sir. It was great to
Yes,
meet
Joe.
you.
You as
Best
well.
best of luck with the book and everything else, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Good to meet you, Joe. Thanks for your time.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.